Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chakra Way Meditation Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Bob Martin. Now, I was very drawn to talking to Bob because he's got a fascinating story. Bob describes himself, when I asked him what he wanted to be introduced as, he said as a happy man, which I think is, well, that's a pretty good place to start. But Bob is a mindfulness teacher. But if that's sort of in the current phase, I feel, and working backwards, he's been a therapist, a social worker, and a criminal trial attorney, and also a hippie, uh, a mob lawyer. I mean, I'm drawn in, I'm interested. And what we're going to talk about today is his new book, which he'll talk to us about in a bit, which is, I think, fascinating, drawing together various different religions, in this case, Taoism and Christianity, and seeing where they meet in the middle. And this is going to be what we're going to get to, but I know I'm going to get distracted by the Miami Vice situation going on. So welcome, Bob. Thanks so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. So tell me the work you do now, and then we'll go back into how you got to where you are now.
Well, so I was lawyering up until 2015, and then I retired. And as soon as I retired, the university that's here in my town, Elon University, they asked me if I would come teach business law to the undergraduates. But when I got there, I found out that there was a whole spiritual center that they had recently constructed on the campus, and it's really a cool place. It's interfaith based, and they do all kinds of wonderful things there. They have a sacred space and the like. So I was attracted, and I kind of went over there and had a conversation with some of the folks, and they said, well, I told them that, I teach meditation, and they go, "Oh, you must teach Koru." And I said, "Koru? What's Koru?" So then they told me that Duke University had uh, created for their very anxious students a stress reduction / meditation program that was the result of 3 years of research into what works and what doesn't work. And they developed this really cool digital infrastructure where the student does their 10 minutes of meditation a day, but then logs it on the app. And all of those logs come to my dashboard every morning. And then I get to coach every single day. So there's daily coaching that goes on during the week before we have our weekly meeting. And I was really excited about that because it was just a very different way. So I went and got certified there, and that led to my building a meditation teaching practice. And now I'm going to be teaching on campus a 2-credit meditation course. And I'm also the mindfulness coordinator for faculty and staff. So I'm always producing lunch and learns and little programs for faculty and staff over there. So that's my passion. And I write poetry, I write books, and I get involved in community stuff. And I thought I was retired, but I don't
No
know. I've
such
never
luck.
been busier.
So this meditation course that you're teaching, and they're getting credits for this. This
Mhm.
is learning how to meditate, or how to teach others to meditate. What
No,
is
no, it's how to meditate.
how to
Yeah,
meditate?
yeah,
And so,
it's
what are your methods? How do you teach them to meditate? I mean, I provide meditations, as my listeners know. Every week there's a meditation, and it's a guided meditation because because I'm not in the room with them holding space, so I hold space, but you kind of have to be a bit, so I'm wordy,
mhm, mhm, mhm. Right, right, right.
so what kind of meditation are you teaching, or are you teaching all the types of meditation? Because there are.
Well, no, there is a set number that is in the Koru protocol. And so the first week I would teach breath awareness and belly breathing. So we meet, the way it would work is we would meet, and people would talk about, what they think meditation is and what it's not. And I would be able to offer some ideas about that. And we would talk about the fact that, you're not your thoughts, and also talk about the fact that it's not about emptying the mind or clearing the mind. It's about watching the thoughts and being able to reconnect with your observer and
Yeah,
the like.
yeah.
So we talk about those things. Then I would teach them, say, two techniques, breath awareness and the like, and I would take them through it in a guided meditation in class.
Okay.
Then they go home and they have the app. And the app has exactly the same stuff that I taught in class on it. It has the belly breathing and the breath awareness, guided meditations.
Yeah.
They can either do 10, 15, or 20 minutes. So the homework is they do the meditation, listen to the guidance, and then they'll write me a log. And so the log will come to my dashboard the next morning, and it might say something like, well, I really tried to do the meditation, but I failed because my dog was barking and there was a truck outside and it had a real big muffler, and it really annoyed me, and I just couldn't keep. And by the time I finally came back to trying to listen, it was over.
Yeah.
So that would come to me, and then I might respond to it by saying, whoa, 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 you didn't fail. Look at all the stuff you noticed. You noticed that you were annoyed. What did that feel like? Where did you feel it in your body? Where did you feel it here? What were the thoughts that were associated with that? But you noticed it, and you noticed the dog barking, and you noticed that you were distracted, and you noticed all of these feelings and sensations, and you would not have noticed all that if you hadn't started out by forming an intention to pay attention to your breath. You
Mm.
wouldn't have noticed all of that stuff. So look at all the wonderful stuff you noticed. You actually did a wonderful job. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's
so
brilliant.
I get to give feedback like that on a daily basis before the student starts down the wrong path for the week, thinking they're doing it right, but beating themselves up. And it's not a week before they can express that in group, and
Wow.
I can offer some suggestions about it.
I love
So
that. I'm almost jealous. I'm kind of jealous. I wish that I could
you
have
can.
kind of feedback from my listeners. That would be
Mhm.
amazing, and to be able to support them in that way. That
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
incredible.
Well, the nice thing about it is if you take the training, which is very short and not very expensive, if you have already a practice and you're already a teacher and you already know the basics of meditation,
Yeah.
you could take the training and then you have the digital infrastructure available to you,
Okay. Well, listen,
and you can use
we'll
it
talk
for.
about this off air because I'll get fully distracted by all of that.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right.
But it is a
Anyway, it's
fascinating.
exciting stuff. It
Yeah,
works.
it is.
It works.
It's fantastic. Really
Hmm.
interesting. Okay, so back to let's just rewind a moment because
Okay.
your latest book, I can see the poster is in the back there, I Am the Way, which is the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about, the thing that
Okay.
brought me
Okay.
to you, which was about this mixture of Taoism and Christianity. um how did that come about in your life? When did you become a Taoist, if that's the right terminology even?
Mhm.
Tell
Yes,
us
it is.
a little bit about
Sure, sure.
Taoism. Yeah.
Sure. So my folks were Eastern European immigrants. My dad was Hungarian royalty, and my mom was Roma Gypsy. And the Bolsheviks wiped out the royalty,
Mhm.
and everybody wiped out the Romas.
True.
And so they came to the conclusion there couldn't be a God. So
Mm.
I was raised up without any affiliation to any kind of spiritual tradition.
Right.
Um, and although it was funny, my dad required me to go to Christian Sunday school because he said, we are Americans. You must learn the Bible stories.
Well, yeah, there is that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so in my 30s, I was a mob lawyer, and they were sending me all kinds of people and taking me out to all Miami's chrome and glass nightclubs, and my family life was going to the pits, and I was doing some stuff I shouldn't have been doing, not legally, not ethically, but I was maybe dealing with some drugs and things like that, and my life was really bottoming out, and I was seeing a therapist, and I came to a life crossroads, and I discovered at that point. I asked him a question, and he started throwing some coins, and he consulted the I Ching, which is a Taoist tradition, and gave me an answer. And I got really mad because I'm paying him money to throw coins and consult some weird thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I found out that he was a disciple of and the English language editor for Master Watching Ni, a 72nd generation Taoist master from the Shaolin Temple.
Wow.
So I studied under Ni and George and some other of Ni's disciples in Miami for 8 years. It changed my life. I basically went from being a mob lawyer to a public defender.
Yeah, amazing. That's
Uh,
extraordinary. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to sort of end up, and I guess it's a fairly I can see the path through from becoming a lawyer to, you're in the 80s Miami, like of course you're going to become a mob lawyer because I grew up watching Miami Vice, so of course.
right.
But to make this big change is a huge thing. But I wanted to just go back. Sorry, your poster just fell down. I just wanted to go back. Quick question about the I Ching, because this fascinates me, as does things like tarot and oracle cards and so on. Is the I Ching something you need to be trained in? I mean, if you're doing tarot, that obviously takes some learning. Is the I Ching the same thing? You need to be able to understand, and is it a big training to learn how the I Ching works, or
No,
sort of order an I Ching and coins off?
not at all. And not only that, but Master Ni would always say, it is through the I Ching that you gain mastery in life.
Ah,
Ah, it is not an oracle. It is not a fortune-telling device. It is a means of forming a bridge between your intuitive brain and your logical brain. Your intuitive brain does not speak in language, but your conscious brain does. And the I Ching is a way of creating a bridge so that your intuitive brain can find the words to communicate with your conscious brain so that you can take action. And Carl Jung wrote a wonderful treatise that explains it perfectly. And I would credit the I Ching with my happiness today.
so do you use the I Ching when
I,
you're?
I do, I do, and you can learn how to use it in 10 minutes,
Mm,
and then the rest, just like meditation. I can lead a meditation in 10 minutes. It's not the learning of it; it's the practice of it.
mm-hmm.
So for years and years, it was a practice of mine. Every morning I would get up and ask the I Ching this question: what do I need to know about today?
Hmm.
And then I would do some mathematical computations, which would occupy my logical mind over here, and allow my intuitive mind to deeply answer the question, because my mind knows me, and it knows the answer to the question about what I need to work on today. So then once you have been pointed to a particular reading, you read it and you unconsciously choose the words that your intuitive mind wants your conscious mind to pay attention to. So it's not doing anything for you. It's just giving you an opportunity to hear your own answer, which you already knew.
Yeah, it's kind of like those books. My husband has a book which I actually really enjoy. It's a Stoics book. So, and it's every day of the year. There's another little, reading, a little interpretation from, I don't know, Marcus Aurelius or one of the Stoics, and it always seems relevant because you interpret it to your life, you place it over your life, and
Yes,
then you get the meaning and the interpretation
yes,
and the lesson that you need.
exactly.
It's the same way when you're doing an oracle card or something, I mean, they do tend to be freakishly kind of accurate. But that's the way the universe works, isn't it?
Yes, it
Is
is.
the I Ching, is it a very integral part of Taoism, or is it just a tool?
Oh, I think it's a very integral part because it deals with the five elements. It deals with yin and yang. I mean, the whole concept, I means changes, and Ching is a classical book. So I Ching means the classical book of changes. And the symbol of the Tai Chi, of course, the seed of yin is inside of yang, and the seed of yang is inside of yin, meaning that they will both blossom and grow. Yin will become yang, yang will become yin, day becomes night, night becomes day. And what we often forget is that good times become bad times and bad times become good times. And so it teaches you to be able to be much more accepting of the bad times because you know that the energy is going to change. You
Yeah.
know that it will because it always has.
And that's kind of like a secret to happiness, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like that very simple thing of like, this too shall pass, whether it be good or bad, is a way of just it's a way of letting go, I guess, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? It's a way of just not gripping onto like, oh my God, this time of this thing, this situation is so dreadful. Well, I'm in it and I can't see a way out of it. It's like seeing that the dawn break over the horizon, isn't it? For sure.
Absolutely. And we often think of that, this too shall pass for applying it to the bad times, but we kind
Mhm.
of forget to apply it to the good times
That's true. Me
because
too.
the wisdom of the I Ching would teach you that when the times are really good and everybody's listening to you and you have great power and you have great persuasiveness and you have great resources, that's the time to have a little bit of humility and to remember that it's not always going to be that way. And you start to hold back a little and put a little way in savings and prepare a little bit because you know that times that aren't so great are coming and you want to have the resources to be able to ride that through.
Mm. Yeah.
And so
And I think
wherever you are, yeah.
it's a very I don't know, Western modern expectation that the graph just goes in one direction and that's up. And all we have to do is look back at history. I mean, just look at, I don't know, the stock markets or war, or I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
disease or whatever. But it goes in waves, like everything travels in waves, like energy travels in waves,
Mm-hmm.
water.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So how can we expect
And
life not to?
can I say something about that? I remember something Master Nee taught me. He said, "Your life is like a string, and if you, with your ups and downs, if you take the string and lay it on a table and you push it high here and low there and high here and low there, that the length of the string becomes shorter." So if you want the length of the string to be longer, you have to make those high and low lows into more moderate oscillations, and then your life will be longer.
It's probably right, actually, because when you live a high life or you live a low, that's yeah, it's gonna have some kind of impact for sure.
Right, right, right.
So Taoism, you got into this having met with this therapist who threw the I Ching coins and gave you a word which obviously annoyed you greatly, but actually changed your life. And
Mm-hmm.
went and studied. So tell everybody, myself included, because I'm not no expert, the general principles of Taoism and what being a Taoist means to you or in general.
I would say that the term that we all love, but probably don't think of as deeply as we ought to, is going with the flow.
Mhm.
We all love that idea because we think of, sitting back in an inner tube going down a sweet little river, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And that's how we think of going with the flow. But it's really much more profound, because it it requires two things. One is to understand and be able to recognize and understand the flow and what the characteristics of the flow is. And then second, having the wisdom to understand how to adjust your behavior so that it is effective and efficient within the flow, which you have no control over. So it kind of like if you're out in the water and you want to get into shore and the tide's going against you, this is not the time to swim like heck. You'll exhaust yourself and you won't make good progress.
Mhm.
Better just to hold with enough energy to hold tight, Then when the tide changes and it's going towards the shore, then it's the time to swim like heck.
Mm.
So all of the earth and light and fire elements and all of these things are just simply metaphors for the different aspects of the flows that we're in. I'm sure you've been in times when you've had a wonderful, great idea and you want to, like, share it with everybody and nobody wants to listen to you.
Mm.
And then there are times when people turn to you and they say, well, what do you think? What should we do? And they're looking for your wisdom. These are different flows. And so, what is the best and effective and most efficient way to be in those times? Sometimes you're trying to talk and everybody thinks you're arrogant. We would call that the darkening of the light. It's you have to turn the light down a little bit, so you don't turn people off. When they're not listening, don't force yourself on them. Hold back and prepare for when they are ready to listen so that
Mm.
you have something wise to say when that occurs. So I would say Taoism is very energy based, like, you are into chakras and we know that energy. It's
Mm.
very energy based, but it's the energy of the universe, and that it oscillates and it changes and it has characteristics. And to gain mastery in life, we want to be able to identify and recognize the time that we're in
Mm.
and then be according to that time.
It's a really when you say it out loud, it sounds really obvious. I mean, maybe to me and to people who work in energy, it seems really obvious. Like, yeah, you get, and I know with myself when in my work, certainly, I'll have a thing where I'm like, right, I feel like the time is right now to launch my course again and go, right, who's up for it, who's around, and the people will come. And then I sit there for another sort of few months going, okay, so when's the next moment going to come along? And I sort of wait for it and go, is it now? And it doesn't quite feel right. But like, how do you know when is the right time? It's because for me, I'm going to go, it's third eye, it's intuition, it's listening. But in your world,
So yeah, great question. Wonderful. That is exactly what the I Ching trains you in. It doesn't tell you that, it trains you in it. Because what you would do at that point, say, oh, I feel this is the great time to launch this project, and everything just seems right. There's this little lingering doubt that's someplace in the back of your mind. So what you would do then is you would grab your coins and you would sit down and you would ask this question: what do I need to know about launching this project? So now you've set your intuitive mind to delve down into your soul and get your internal wisdom that you already know, which will include that little lingering doubt back there. And then you would be directed to read certain passages. And from those passages, you would get some advice that maybe you knew, but you didn't want to share with yourself.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
It's that little piece of evidence that, I don't want to really think about that, because what I really want is to launch it. But that I don't want to think about that little thing that might get in the way,
yeah,
you know. And the I Ching you'll pick that out of the reading,
yeah.
and then you'll think. So you will learn a little bit about that. There are 64 pie slices of flow in the I Ching.
Okay.
And each of those pie slices has 6 sub pie slices.
Okay.
So all of these energies and the energies are like, preponderance of the great. That means, you've got resources, you've got energy, everything's great. What do you do? How do you act? There's calculated waiting, there's retreat, there's great progress. There's all these titles. And what happens as you practice it, you start to own the titles. They become part of your muscle memory.
Mhm.
So you find yourself in a situation, you start to get a little frustrated. You go, oh, this is darkening of the light. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
then you know how to adjust yourself to deal with that in a wise, effective, and efficient way.
Yeah. And I
So
feel
that's
like because
Mhm.
you also said, you have this situation, you go to the I Ching and you ask it a question. Now, for me, I'm going to come back and go, What's the question? What am I supposed to be asking?
The
Like,
question is always the same.
it's what do I need to know about?
What do I need to know about? Because you cannot ask it, should I?
No.
You can't ask it a yes or no question. It won't give you any kind of definitive answers.
Mm,
It'll just give you advice about, how you need to think, what perspective you ought to have in pretty much any situation, but you'll relate it to this specific one.
yeah. And you said earlier that, when you've done your coins, there's part of your brain's doing a little bit of mathematics whilst the rest.
Mhm.
Is it a numbers based thing? Is there
Yeah,
numerals?
yeah, yeah. It actually there's actually a great wonderful book that I think any beginner should use. It's called The Illustrated I Ching by R.L. Wing, and it is out of print, and so you have to buy it used. There
Yeah.
is also in print is the I Ching workbook by R.L. Wing, but in the I Ching in the illustrated I Ching, um, he in the first like 8 or 10 pages, he shows you the method of using coins. You basically assess a value of 2 to heads and 3 to tails, and you throw the coins and you add them up, and they'll come up to 6 to 9, and you create little lines with little marks, and it creates a hexagram. And then you go to a chart and you look it up on the hexagram. So this is all it is
It's
all
ancient.
just
This is
huh?
ancient. This is ancient wisdom, isn't it? Like when,
Ancient ways,
when was the I Ching developed or devised?
4,000 years.
Yeah. So this has
Yeah.
been around for longer than Christianity,
Oh
essentially.
yeah, yeah. Way, way, way.
Yeah.
So you wanted to know how I came to write the book? If
Yes, yes, we're getting there. Sorry.
oh, oh
Actually, I'm
no,
just
no, it's
saying too
okay.
interested in this I
Um,
Ching thing.
so so I came to North Carolina, and when I got here, there were very few Taoists in North Carolina. So I started attending Buddhist ceremonies. And so that's when I really got into meditation, because
Mm,
Taoism is more contemplative than
mm,
meditative.
mhm.
And That's when I got into meditation. But anyway, uh, jumping a little bit forward. So I'm marrying my second wife, and she is a Southern Baptist Bible literalist. She
Okay.
believes literally in the Bible and the inerrant word of God. Uh,
Okay.
okay, but if she were from a Buddhist would call her a bodhisattva.
Right.
She's a saint. Um,
Mhm.
she she will never pass someone in need, and she will never look for a pat in the back for having helped them.
Mm.
It's just what she's called to do, and it's nothing unusual or weird about it for her. She just move in. She's just she's just a very loving, kind, wonderful, uh, organized, which I'm not an organized person. Anyway, so we met on our values, but we certainly our cosmology was very different.
Yeah.
And the Tao Te Ching, which is very near and dear to my heart, is something that I wanted to share with her. But that packed Chinese pithy way of writing just doesn't have a lot of access to Western thinking. And So I started taking couplets or a couple of pieces. If I wanted to show her that, instead of showing her it in the Tao Te Ching, I would go and look in the Bible and say, which of those values are reflected in this Bible story? And
Yeah.
so I would tell it to her in biblical terms,
Hmm.
and she would get it, bang, because the teachings, not it's like Gandhi said, I love your Christ, but I'm not so sure about the followers. Um, uh, so the teachings of Jesus and the writings of Lao Tzu, there's not a hair's breadth of difference there.
Mm.
So it was an easy thing to do. It was easy. I started doing that, and she liked it. And so we found that we could talk more about what we believed in, and it drew us closer together and formed even a tighter bond in our relationship as we began to share it in each other's language.
Mm.
And The funny part about it is, so this all started because one day she's off to her Southern Baptist church. Right now, I would call her a recovering Southern Baptist, by the way. Uh, but she would go off to her church, and one day she had these really sad eyes. And I said, honey, what's wrong? And she says, well, I love you so much, but I just hate it that you're not going to go to heaven with me. Because, in her belief system, if you weren't saved and didn't accept Jesus, you wouldn't go to heaven.
Yeah.
And I would say to her, well, I'm really sad that you're not going to be reincarnated with me. And she would go, oh, stop. So that's what kind of started it. And then piece by piece by piece, I start saying, well, this is pretty cool stuff. And I worked with some other folks and they kind of liked it. So I just kept working on it. And finally, I did all 81 chapters of the Tao Te Ching and translated them and reimagined them, I guess is the right word, into a Christian 81 meditations.
Right. So you basically took the principles of the Taoism and found comparatives from the Bible that held the same values.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And I feel like you could probably do that with the Quran or with any
Absolutely.
religious, I think all religious texts and all religious what's the right word? Theory, no, stories. They all basically come back to the same place of universal truth, which is love and kindness and good moral good values, so on. They all hold up the same thing. They just have a different person, God, whatever, sitting at the very top of that, and with different stories. I feel like this is really valuable work in global terms, because everyone's so very stuck. You guys, you and your wife are a really beautiful example of coming from two very different religions, but with the very similar values and working it out. I feel like it's almost, really, really important that gets done with all religions so that everybody can see the similarities and stop the ridiculous that comes alongside religion that we see so much.
Would you like me to read something from the book?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'd love
okay.
Why not?
So I tell you what, let's do it this way. Pick a random number between 1 and 81, and we'll read that one.
54.
54.
There we go.
So Tao means the way. That's what it translates to. And Jesus said, I am the way. And so I don't know if that's coincidence or it's kind of cool, but that's why I named the book I Am the Way, finding the truth in the life through a biblical reimagining of the Tao. So what I do in the book is I don't know if you can see the So every chapter starts off with a title that I gave it. And then you can look in the table of contents, and it's more like a devotional. It's not a book that you read from page to page. You just look through the table of contents, you see a title that intrigues you, and you go read that one. And that's all you do for that day. That's it.
Yeah, lovely.
And
love
then
those kind of books.
I have a quote from someone, and then I have the reading that I created. And then there's a commentary, which blows it out a little bit more, and then a practical something to do. But I'll just read the statement. So this chapter 54 is called Bring the Way, the Tao, the way, bring the way into your life. And then the quote is from Mahatma Gandhi. Let me see if I can just, 1 second. Nope. Sorry.
No worries. Get this.
So bring the way into your life. The quote from Mahatma Gandhi is, be the change you want to see in the world. And the way it reads is, once the way of Christ is established, it cannot be uprooted. Once the way is firmly held, it cannot be stolen. Parents, plant deeply the way in your children. They will thrive, as will their children's children, and they will be known by the fruit they bear. When the way is cultivated in oneself, one becomes authentic. When cultivated in the home, the family will flourish. When the way is cultivated in the community becomes supportive. When cultivated in the nation becomes an example for all nations. When the way is enabled in the world, it becomes the culture of the land. When cultivated in the universe sings. Therefore, one can see that one influences the family influences the community influences the nation, and the nation influences the world. Therefore, bring the way into your life, and it will spread all about you. How do I know this is true? Because I have seen the way move and live.
Mm. Very true. Very, very true. So that is, yeah, that's a really lovely, clever me for choosing that chapter. It illustrates it really beautifully. So that reading is illustrating not only Mahatma Gandhi's quote, which is
Mm-hmm.
you want to see, um, Jesus being I am the way, and the Taoism, which is the way. And it's lovely. Thank you very much for reading that.
Yeah.
That was
And
great.
if you wanted to know what is the way that Jesus taught, I think you would find it in the Beatitudes.
Yeah.
I mean, the Beatitudes is right out of Taoist and Buddhist scripture. It is. Um,
Yeah.
the values of humility. And there's another place in there where, I talk about the meek, and you wonder about the meek. And Rome was strong, it says, and the Lord was meek, but Rome fell, and the Lord became eternal.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, no, um it's a really I love the fact that it's a spirituality thing, not a religion thing. I'm very very spiritual, but not at all religious. But
Mm-hmm.
I value the religions, the qualities and the morals and the values that each religion holds. I
Mm-hmm.
respect it so much because it's what we all need to know, but it's just it's the politicization and the dogma and the division that religion creates
Yeah.
that it's the really challenging thing.
So true. And
Mm.
that's one of the things that hurts my heart, is that organized religion has created a lot of damage.
Mm.
I mean, it's done a lot of good. I don't want to, be just one-sided, but there's a lot of people who, through the exclusivity or the rigid teachings, or just the idea that, you have to join my group and my group's better than their group, and that whole thing, it's just hurt a lot of people. And so they have left the church, and now, people that identify as none, no religious affiliation, are out now, is the largest single group
Yeah.
of religious affiliations. And I don't, I'm not, I'm not promoting organized religion per se, but I think people need to be a part of a group that strives for our better angels.
Yeah,
And
because I mean, you were a hippie, like you were all about the kind of the I feel like there's a lot of people whose religion, for want of a better word, because it's not really religion, but is universal spirit, is paganism, is
Mhm.
worshiping Mother Earth, paying attention to the moon and the stars, astrology, all of those the fact that there is a bigger thing out there that has an influence on our lives, that cares for us, that has our best interests at heart, whether that be the universe or the fact that the moon's gone back into retrograde, and I don't know, whatever
Mhm.
it means to you. People here, am I clutching my crystals? People have these talisman of things that mean something, that ground them to some kind of ritualism, because as humans we blooming love a ritual. We've been dancing around the fire since fire was found. So we like that. And it also community, we like ritual, we need community. These are things that as humans we like, and that religion definitely spoke to and fulfilled those things. But then when it became brimstone and fire, and you're not good enough, it did become very, and this is why I find it very interesting to sit on this kind of on the sort of edge of all of this, looking at the community of people who are becoming spiritual. Because now I think you could almost say, being a spiritualist, there should be like a spiritual box in that religious, list of
Right, 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 right. No, so many people say I'm spiritual but not religious. There's
yeah.
a new budding word that I've come across a couple of times in the last month or so called omnism.
Omnism, as in
Omnism, like omni being all.
everything,
And
all.
so it is folks who take a little bit of this religion, a little bit of that religion, takes the best, leaves the rest,
Yeah.
and kind of creates their own, spirituality, using different ideas from different religions,
Yeah.
without borders. And I kind of like that idea.
I mean, I think with the dissemination of so much information across the world now, you can get hold of any information from anywhere. It's the same kind of thing when it comes to um, work on the self, therapy type work,
Mhm.
healing type work, self-discovery, inner growth, however you like to put it, your seeking world of, whether actually chakras are my thing, or whether Tai Chi is my thing, or whether, I'm really into Reiki or angels, or I don't know, talking to ETs, whatever it is that rings your bell, in terms of, maybe herbalism or reflexology. Like there's so many different things that we can then put together in our own little pie. We're taking all these different ingredients, and we all create our own unique little pie, because we're all unique. We've all got unique needs and aspirations, and
Mhm.
and abilities to bring those in. So I find it really refreshing that there's so much out there, and the fact that you are bringing these big, I mean, Christianity, look, it's a big hitter. Little Taoism, which is like a little feisty dude in the corner here. It's, I think it's
It
fantastic.
is. It is. I love the image of that. Um, but it's funny among folks that call themselves spiritual. Again, it's like they throw the baby out with the bathwater, and so somewhere along the line, well, two things that were, I guess, that biased me a little bit. When I mentioned my dad would bring me to Sunday schools,
Mm.
and like they would tell me these stories, and for me it was all like Disney, I mean, Noah and the Ark, and all these other things. But the one consistent thing, I went to so many different places because we were in a carnival, and we were the popcorn caramel candy trailer.
Okay.
And so we went to a lot of towns, and so I went to a lot of different churches. The one thing that was consistent that they always kept telling me is that there was this guy, and again, I wasn't real sure, who he was or what he was, but there was this guy that out there somewhere that loved me.
Mm.
And deep, deep, hearing that several times as a very young child, I accepted that there's somebody that loves me. And that that alone was something that through the hardest times, and I got bullied as a kid, and all kinds of through the hardest times, that was just that sense that no matter how bad it got, there was somebody who loved me.
Mm.
And so that brings me in my later years to really love Jesus, not so much as a divine creature, but as a great master, as a great wisdom teacher, and the way that you would love your teacher,
Yeah.
a great teacher who. And so it hurts me that his teachings get thrown out or dismissed along with um, the dogma that grew up around it. And
Mm.
that was probably one of the things that kept me working on the book. If I can just open up the door to a few folks and let them know that that God, as they understand it, or as whoever may understand God to be, there's proof that that intelligence permeates the world because the same stuff comes up everywhere.
Mhm.
There's got to be a connection.
Mhm.
In law, we would call it, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you're right. And I think that it's really it is a shame that it has become so difficult to be religious, to be Christian. I
Mhm.
know, I mean, in the UK, I live in a county called Norfolk, where there are more churches per square mile than anywhere else in the rest of the country. I live literally next door to a church. There are so many churches, and they're beautiful and they're crumbling and what have you. But they are places that are cold, and they, because there's so many of them, they can't heat them all because it's expensive and so on. They're cold. Half of them don't have services on every week, and even when there are services, they're very sparsely attended. There's a kind of dirge about the Church of England as a
Mhm.
Christian section, I suppose.
Mhm. Mhm.
I feel in America, Christianity is very much more alive. It's very much more vibrant than it is in this country. But even though, and but it kind of verges on the slightly kind of, I don't know, I don't want to be rude because I have a lot of American listeners and I'm sure some of them are Christians, but it's very much more, well, not flamboyant, but it's more passionate, and it's a very strong held belief for a lot of Americans. Christianity is kind of like almost patriotic. It's a patriotic
Mhm.
almost.
Well, there is
From the
there is a
outside point of view, that's what it seems like.
there is a growing Christian nationalism, which isn't so pretty.
Yeah.
That is very sad and very dangerous.
In the
I
name of,
uh,
using it as a name in the name of, and then doing whatever
right.
they want to do. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, my I have a Muslim friend of mine who is a prayer leader at the mosque in my town, and we chat a lot. And he says to me that one of the great mistakes, not mistakes, or one of the great historical facts of Islam that led to a lot of suffering was the fact that Muhammad, may peace be upon him, um, was both the secular and spiritual leader. And by combining those two things, you put the power of wealth, the importance of power and wealth together with a God who's on your side. And that led to a lot of the Sunni Shiite warring and the like, and caused great rifts
Mm.
because not only was your spirit at play, but also your livelihood and your wealth and your money. And if you believed a certain way, and the government was behind you, then things would go well for you. If the government wasn't behind you, it wouldn't. And so that combining of church and state was what he believes caused a great deal of suffering
Mm.
over the years. And now, we have a pretty rigid wall, as you do, between church and state, and
Yeah, but
Christian nationalism.
if you look
Huh?
back historically, certainly in England's history, the
Hmm.
UK's history, if you look back in, several hundred years when church and state were absolutely enmeshed,
Right? Church
that
of England.
was, that was not pretty either. That
No.
was, so, but every religion goes through that phase, I think.
And we may be going through it now, which is not very pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, um, I think that, we have a very strong evangelical, or what I would call fundamental Bible literalist, uh, is probably the most attended. And
Mm.
then progressive Christianity is kind of like your image of the little, the little one,
Little feisty guy.
the little
Yeah.
feisty guy.
Yeah. No, and it's fascinating. And I am fascinated by the literalists. And I hadn't even ever heard that as a term before in, but yeah, it's a whole fascinating thing. So well, listen, let's wrap this up
Okay.
by coming back to where we started, which was you identifying as a happy man. So
Yes.
it's happiness. And I know we talked about it briefly at the beginning, but what to you, like, you have this beautiful overview, you have this lovely practice of the meditation, and you have your students, that must bring you so much joy. But what in your mind is happiness, and how do give us all a little bit of happiness to go away with?
Um, Happiness for me
Mhm.
is being able to hold, I've done enough, I'm good enough exactly the way that I am, to hold that in one hand, and at the same time be able to ask myself, have I done enough? Is there more I can do? And to be able to hold those together without conflict.
Okay, that's quite a big ask. I'm just being,
Does that make any sense even? I mean, that's what just, I mean, it's the first time I ever said that. So I don't know if that makes sense.
yeah, no, that feeling of being enough in the one hand, being enough and feeling worthy and enough in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So wanting to give. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I heard
Mm-hmm.
in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wanting
Yeah.
to be of, to be part of the world and to do more, to give more. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And another way I could think about it is what really makes me happy is that I'm free.
Hmm.
I am free to be able to be angry or to be sad or to grieve or to have the full range of human emotions, while at the same time knowing that there is a place that's deeper down, that is the observer, that observer that I have become so connected with through meditation is always there, that allows me to both be angry or be sad or be frustrated on the surface, and yet be able to watch me being frustrated with kind of a smile on my lips and saying, isn't that cute?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically you're saying like having that full connection with what I would call the higher self.
Hmm. Maybe that's it. Yes.
Yeah, that
Um,
inner you, that observer side of you that knows, it's that for me, it's that wisdom in the third eye, it's that higher self
mhm,
that is not the ego, the one that
mhm,
it's not worthy enough. So I think you're right. I think it's that connection between the ego being not being a complete dick, for want of a better words, and telling you some horrible things, which it's very
right.
good at. So the ego being at peace and thinking, yeah, we're doing right. And then the higher self going, but we can do more. And
Mhm,
and we can go deeper, we can go further, we can help, we can do whatever it is that our mission, our
mhm.
purpose is. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Thank you, Bob. That's been brilliant. It's been so fascinating talking to you. And
Oh,
I
thank you
maybe
so
I need
much.
to
No,
come
this
back.
has been a wonderful time. So enjoyable. What a great hour.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. And like we haven't even, well, I know we'll go back one of these days. Maybe we'll just chat about you being a mob lawyer because I do think all the shenanigans you got into. Probably not suitable for this particular podcast, though. But
Mhm.
it's been an absolute joy talking to you,
One,
Bob. Tell people
just
how they can get
one
hold of.
other little thing.
Go on.
I'm thinking just another aspect of that question.
Yeah.
I experience awe a lot, and I think that's a side effect of being free. Um, but I do, and I think awe is the upside or the opposite side of PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Because when PTSD trauma hits, it changes you. When awe hits it, it changes you.
Yeah.
And if you're Christians would call it being in those thin places where you feel like you're, just a very small away from God, but
Mhm.
it's that sense of awe. And I think that makes me happy. So anyway, I'm sorry.
No, didn't never apologize for that. That's absolutely fantastic. And I couldn't agree more, and I think in the US, you have a lot of beautiful, massive landscapes. For me, it's always Mother Nature, Mother Earth, that is awe-inspiring. I'm lucky enough to live by the sea. I went for a walk on the beach this morning, and just watching the waves, that for me, that's all. I just yeah, puts you in your
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, Bob, tell people the name of your book again and where they can get
It's
hold of you.
I Am the Way.
Mhm.
And I guess the easiest way to get a hold of me is go to iamthewaybook.com. iamthewaybook.com, and there's a contact tab, and that comes to me directly. So yeah,
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Bob.
and thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.